Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's Over It. I am here with Tara Setmayer, Michelle Kinney, JoJo from Jers, otherwise known as Joanne Carducci, is on her way. She was filming a different show. She's going to be here in a little bit, but we thought we just would not keep people waiting much longer. I'm Julie Roginski. Thank you guys so much for joining us here today. The day after the biggest gaslighting event of my life, at least, and I've lived through Donald Trump, so that's saying quite something. And before we get to what we're over for not just people on the show, but people in the chat, I just want to let everybody know, I think we're all in the same boat. I was up probably till about 1:30 this morning, just completely trying to kind of fact check in my own mind everything that he said. And then I thought to myself, why even bother? Because the whole thing was such a parade of lies and just a parade of nonsense that why even bother to fact check it? It was just a total hello, Joe.
There she is.
Hi.
Sorry. Okay, sorry.
That's all right. We just get started talking about how exhausted all of us are. I don't know if you stayed up to watch this shit show yesterday, but
I did, and I'm so sorry that I'm late because I was just screaming about it to our favorite insufferable asshole from across the pond.
Oh, Piers Morgan.
Fucking Morgan. Yes, I was up and I watched it. And you'll be surprised to know, ladies, that they don't want to talk about the actual merits of the speech.
No.
Talk about the Democrats' response to it and what a woman is.
Okay. Well, thank you for
Piers, love it when I said, Piers, if you feel like a woman, you're a woman too.
And Piers said, heavens no.
Yeah. Said, I'm a woman now, am I? So that's where I am late. I'm so sorry I'm late. That was
it's quite all right. It's quite all right. I thought I was going to be the late one today because I had an appointment with our local DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, not the DC, Maryland, Virginia. We were joking about how when I said I'm over the DMV, and Julie was like, "Come back to Jers." I'm like, "No, not the DMV."
But you should be over the DMV in both the Department of Motor Vehicle sense and also the I can't even speak today. The district, Maryland and Virginia sense, because the Jers is the promised land, as Joe.
Of course. No, listen,
but our DMVs are crazy.
Oh, it's terrible. DMVs are terrible everywhere. And I mean, I've lived in the DC area for 30 years. I had a chance to go back to Jersey for 4 years in between there from 2014 to 2018. And I was so happy. But, we had to move back for career purposes to the DC area. And I have a love-hate relationship with it here. Virginia is beautiful. And I love DC, but there's going to be no place like home. It's just never. I will never, ever, ever be from here. This will never be home for me. And so, it's a love-hate relationship with the DMV. But I had to go to the actual, driving DMV to get my real ID. I'd been putting it off for months and months. And for those who don't have their real IDs, you have until May to get your real ID, or else you can't fly or get into a federal building unless you have a passport with you. So I had the appointment, and I will say that it was shockingly pretty smooth. I had an appointment ahead of time. I made it 2.5 weeks ago. I got there at 9:30. What took the longest was that I forgot to bring a piece of mail with me. I had my passport, my social security card. Like, oh, we need another thing. So I had to go back and get another piece of mail. But that was my fault for not paying attention. So, but other than that, it was you have the appointment line and the non-appointment line. And the non-appointment line, that was chaos. The appointment line, you check in, they give you a clipboard, you fill it out. As soon as you're done filling it out, you wait a minute till the person in front of you takes their little photo, in and out. So I was like, oh, I can do this. So shout out to the Virginia DMV. I don't know if everybody else has that now with appointments, but I think that started from COVID, trying to manage, the crowds. And that works. So an example of local government that works.
I hate to pile on the praise of the DMV, but let me talk about the New York DMV because I had a crazy good experience with them. I've had a car for a long time. It's time to get rid of it. So I bought a new car, but I'm basically trading this one in to get the new car. And the guy goes, "Where's your title?" And I said, I don't even know what you're talking about, because why would I ever think about something like a title?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm the queen of New York.
Yeah, I'm like, title. I don't know exactly. So he's like, I go, where does one get a title? And he said, you have to go to the DMV. And so I said, well, I'm not doing that. I'm not DMV around Penn Station in New York City to get a title because I'm not doing it. So I went online, and within 4 to 5 business days, the title just happened to arrive. And I was like,
right?
I was like, what happened to the DMV that I used to know? Where you used to devote 5 days to just getting like a number to take to get your picture taken. So,
yeah. So anyway, so there was that. I thought to myself, what was I thinking of making the appointment the day after the fake State of the Union? Because I was like, I'm going to be up until God knows what time. And I'm like, now the next day, I'm just a glutton for punishment. I'm like a sadist. So I'm going to wake up now and go to the freaking DMV and deal with that shit. But it ended up turning out being okay. Except the weather here sucks. It's nasty out, but that's okay. We're all here today to talk about what happened last night and what we're over. So enough kvetching about the across the pond, Piers Morgan being a jerk, and the DMV.
I think we covered it.
That's it. We can go home now.
So, Joe, what are you over this week other than Piers Morgan?
Okay, well, part of the thing that I was just talking about with Piers Morgan, Matt Schlapp was on my panel, friends. That
okay.
That's handsy, Matt Schlappy. And believe me, did I get in every opportunity to say, oh yeah, Matt Schlapp, you might want to not touch this one. Every time. And then Piers complimented him on being quiet the whole show. And I was like, that bitch was quiet, because every time he opened his mouth, I would say, are you sure you want to go to Matt Schlapp? But I'll just put that to the side for now, because Matt Schlapp increasingly throughout the show got smaller and smaller and smaller. So I'll just
tracks.
But what I'm over relates to a conversation I just had on that silly show, because I am tired. I'm over them telling us, the Republicans, that's cult, that they back the blue, and co-opting their support for our police officers when they are the same party that pardoned those people, the terrorists, who beat our Capitol police officers with their own batons, with their own shields, that sprayed them with chemicals, that in Michael Fanone's case, they gave him a stroke, a heart attack. Sergeant Ganell is still walking around with the physical trauma. And the same party is using their back the blue argument to make the case for pardoning Chauvin, Derek Chauvin. This is the argument they are making to say they support our police. And I am over it, because it is bullshit and it is hypocrisy, and you cannot hold both of those opinions in your hands at the same time. You can't. So I'm over it, and I'm furious about it. And last night, again, they did the same thing. My heart goes out to DJ. My heart goes out to DJ's family. But using DJ's story, DJ's ailment, as a tool for propaganda, when you're not only talking about someone who incited an attack on our police officers, then called those police officers, who we all know, crisis actors, and then had the audacity to release from prison the people who beat them. I'm sorry, but and by the way, when you're talking about a child with cancer, this is also the party that has defunded pediatric cancer research as we speak, friends. So I'm over the hypocrisy in general, but on this specific issue, boy, does it burn my ass. So clearly I have some thoughts about that, but that's what I'm over.
You know, the one thing,
spirit animal, because I just did this rant last night, because we did a post, Michelle and I did a post, fake State of the Union show for the stakes for Seneca, and I did the exact same, virtually almost word for word, the exact same rant. Because my Substack, of course, and my mom and I use the expression, it burns my ass all the time. It's such a Jersey expression. I love it. Oh my God. But I did the exact same thing. My Substack was basically about that, because I'm like, I just want to remind everyone that this is the same place where all this happened. And so that's
what I kept looking, like when the Sergeant Arms said, whatever, I think it's a Sergeant Arms, right? Said President of the United States, and he walked into that House chamber. And I bet, and I'd love to hear from people in the chat, I bet I am not the only person who immediately flashed back to those pictures of many of those same members of Congress in that very same chamber, cowering under their desks. And cowering is a negative word. I don't even mean to use it negatively. I mean, they were truly huddling for their lives.
Yeah.
Because the very people whom Donald Trump pardoned were running roughshod over brave Capitol police officers, including Michael Fanone, including Sergeant Gonell. I mean, all of these people, railroading them to try to break into that chamber to harm these people at the behest of Donald Trump. And to have this frat boy party standing there, smirking and grimacing while that was all happening. You know, it's not like they don't know. That's the part that I guess gets me, Joe, to what you're saying. It's not like these members don't know. They know. And the two, I kept looking at them like this is like Beavis and Butthead with Johnson and Vance sitting behind him, smirking all the time. Every time he do a joke, they kind of smirk the way like, you know, like bratty teenage boys would kind of smirk if like somebody made a really derogatory joke about a girl in high school. They'd be like, yeah.
Bratty teenage boys who might have a crush on each other. Just
yes, thank you. I was waiting, Michelle. She was teeing it up. I was waiting for you to say.
Thank you, Michelle. But that's absolutely right. And God only knows, kind of looking at each other, you know. And the question to me is like, everybody in that chamber knows. The Democrats know, and I'll get to what I'm annoyed about and over it in a second about that. But the Republicans know there's probably not one true believer among them.
No.
Not even Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like they all know it's a scam.
Mm-hmm.
But then to Joe's point, to it's one thing to kind of exploit it for political reasons, but when you stand up and you look the American people in the eye and you say that you back the blue in the very same chamber where you did everything but back the blue, that is a bridge too far. And I don't know for the life of me why Democrats are not going ballistic about this, which of course brings me to my over it, which I will expand on, which is where the hell are the Democrats? Color coordination is not a plan, my friends. It's just not.
God.
It's just not. The Daily Show thank you for throwing that up. The Daily Show just nailed it. They just nailed it. You know, you're great. You all look great in pink. Congratulations, Molly Ringwald. Like, what the hell is this?
Pink? They should have all worn black. Or, you know what I mean? Like, or I don't know, but pink.
Yeah.
It reminds everyone of the pink pussy hats and the whole code pink shit from 20 years ago, which did not go over well.
And you know, I did a Substack on this, Tara, because I had a plan for what they should have done. They should have all gone. I don't believe in boycotting this speech because ultimately this is a constitutional requirement that the president he doesn't have to do the State of the Union, but he has to deliver. I think the Constitution says from time to time, he has to deliver an update to Congress. Yeah. About what the administration is up to. And in the last 100 years, since Woodrow Wilson, that's been done by doing a joint session of Congress address. So I don't actually think that Democrats should have boycotted this. What they should have done is they should have sat on their hands. They should have listened. They should have not said a word. They shouldn't have applauded. They should have just sat there stone-faced. And then I get that it's midnight. I get that they're all 150 years old. They should have walked out onto the steps of the Capitol and held a press conference in real time, and not to talk about specific policies and not to nitpick about what he said, but simply to say that because of this president's corruption, your economy is tanking. Mm-hmm. Because of this president's corruption, our allies no longer trust us. And because of this president's corruption, our democracy is in peril. That's it. That's the whole message. In a nutshell. You're welcome. This is what I do for a living. I'll give it in Venmo. But the point is, rather than sitting there saying, well, he said this about this, and that's not really accurate, and he said this about that, and that's not true too. Where's the theme here? Where's the thematic? The thematic is this is a morally, politically, and personally corrupt man that is corrupting the very fiber of this country, and you are paying for it economically, you're paying for it morally, and you're paying for it with your national security. That's it.
And your public health. Yeah. And they made the story about the Democrats' response to his speech anyway, right? They did it anyway. They made the story not about the lies he told the entire fucking time, not about the gaslighting, not about the brazen, blatant corruption. They made the story about how the Democrats responded. So if the Democrats were smart, they said, you know what, they're going to probably make this about us, they should have run with the ball. And they should have said, if you want to make the narrative how we respond, let's respond in a way that blows all this shit up and make it big and make it loud and make it flashy and get all the attention. I don't care if you have to sacrifice like a small cricket. I don't know what you have to do. Whatever it is, nothing big. But like, again, if the narrative is their response, they should have leaned into it and then it should have run with the ball. But they didn't.
Look, I wrote my Substack yesterday with just a brief what I would have done. And Julie and I have a little bit of a disagreement on this. And I mean, she had me thinking about, I forgot about the kind of the constitutional obligation part of this, because I was like, if it were me, I wouldn't have gone. Because I looked at it as the Democrats are going to be used as pawns. And that I knew that they were going to, basically it was going to be a Trump rally with Democrats stuck there having to take it. But hold on. And so I was like, but if they were going to go, then you go, you show up. And then there should have been, when Al Green decided to heckle and they threw him out, I wasn't happy about that because I knew that people would go after that as being they were disruptive. See, that's disrespectful. And I know everyone's like, yeah, but Trump and the Republicans don't respect decorum. I understand, but you still are going to give them that. You're going to give that to them to talk about. And then he gives them the photo op of throwing out a black congressman and a white guy from Louisiana telling him to sit down, which gave me a lot of ick. But they should have then, if they were going to do that, they should have all walked out in solidarity with their colleague and then met up with they were supposed to bring federal workers or something, or like people who were impacted. We didn't see any of that. What happened to those people? They either should have done some kind of joint press conference on the steps or somewhere with featuring some of these people, or they should have, when they all walked out and said, we're not going to sit here and be a part of this spectacle, because Trump threatening the sergeant at arms to remove people and all of this. Like, what are you doing? We're not going to be a part of that.
But they're doing that today, Tara. So this is the part that just kills me, right? Because today, ostensibly, I think at 11 or 1 or at some point, it might have already happened. They are actually going out to the steps of the Capitol. So what is this now? Over 12 hours later, with some of those people. And they're talking about how this impacts real life. My least favorite phrase, everyday Americans. By the way, Have you ever referred to anybody as an everyday American? I don't think so. How about you just say this is how this impacts regular people, right?
Yeah, it's like calling it real America, not real.
Yeah,
America.
like everyday America, like as opposed to like weekend America.
Right? I was like, it's all America. Like
I'm only a weekend. I'm only a weekend.
You're only weekend America. Well, you're basically British now that you've hung out with peers, but yeah.
Right. So, correct. Yes.
But that's the part. Like, first of all, you're waiting too long to do it. Second, it's going to be the same nonsense where you're going to have somebody stand up and be like, my Medicaid got cut and I can't, or it's about to get cut and I rely on it. And the bottom line is, it's not about, stop nitpicking on specific policy. There's going to be time for that. But when there is this existential threat to this country, you've got to come up with an overarching theme where you're not running like a chicken with your head cut off, chasing every single policy that he's screwing you on, right? He's cutting the Department of Education. Like, he's overwhelming you. He's flooding the zone. So come up with a thematic that encompasses everything he says, which is that, again, I go back to this, he is corrupt and he's corrupting the fiber of this country. That's your theme. You don't need to start nitpicking every single one. Like, is there nobody in Washington that knows how to communicate? I don't understand. I mean,
it's the bingo things, right?
Yeah.
Those were crazy. The paddles. I think this again goes to the fact that Hakeem Jeffries has no control over his caucus, like at all. Like the Democrats, like, I don't know what's going on. There is no unified anything. I think Alyssa Slotkin did a very good job of her response last night, but I do think though that it did not sound the alarm to the American people saying you are in danger. Like you are in danger. So I think it was one of the better responses that I think we've seen ever.
Yeah. It's tough.
But it's a very, very It's a very, very tough thing to do. Right. But I think in normal times it would have been really, really good. But we are not living in normal times. And I don't think that she was making the case for the urgency and danger. I mean, that's the thing that I can't seem to wrap my head around, is why people are not understanding, or why it's not being messaged how dangerous this is to, like, just your life. We have another headline here about how they've cut off funding to tornado emergency alerts, hurricane alerts, like all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's crazy.
Doesn't that happen in red states, right? I mean, like,
Yes, oh yeah.
what is it, Tornado Alley? Aren't those red states? So they're like going to kill off their own constituents, you idiots.
You're not going to know when extreme weather is coming. And then when it comes, you're not going to get any federal assistance to help you recover from it. This is what's happening. And to Michelle's point, the alarm it needs to be rung. Like I did a video yesterday where I'm like, you're less safe, like, at your workplace. Your kids, if they have cancer, the funding is not there for the research to help them. Your kids who have special needs, the funding may not be there for the programs that they may need in public school. We're not monitoring infectious diseases anymore. Measles is outbreaking. They have cases in New Jersey now. This is all part and parcel of, like, the chaos that they're trying to sow, so that Americans are so busy dealing with 17 literal fires at every given moment that they can't focus on the blatant, overt, unabashed corruption and power grabbing and money grabbing that is happening, and constitution destroying that is happening from the executive branch. I mean, it's all this part of the design for authoritarians to seize control. And why the Democrats don't seem to understand the urgency of this moment is something that all of us have talked about probably every time we've talked. And they get so close. It's like they're just there on the tip, just the tip, but they don't go in all the way. And you need to go further, friends. Okay, you have consent. I'm telling you, you need to go further, because this is an all hands on deck, five alarm fire, and they're holding up bingo signs. I'm sorry, it's just not enough. And
it felt like we were in the Villages. It was bingo night at the Villages with, like,
right.
with a I don't know. I mean,
and even Al Green, and God bless him, but waving a cane around, like,
it was not the thing to do. It just wasn't. I appreciate the rebellion. Like, you want to make a statement, but we know that the decorum part of this isn't going to go over well. The average American doesn't like it. And so it's like when you're watching this and it just looks like you're heckling and being disruptive. And when I remember when I was a Hill staffer, Democrats were very upset, and a lot of Republicans were, fairly, when Joe Wilson yelled out, "You lie," during Barack Obama's joint session speech. And people, pearl clutched that. Now, I mean, that is mild in comparison to what Donald Trump now does in the chamber, but it doesn't matter. It's kind of like, I don't know. I just didn't think it was the right thing. And if you were going to do that, then, like I said, I thought there should have been a collective walkout and then not allow themselves to be used as props, because we knew that they were gonna do the whole, like, sympathetic guests thing. That is the whole thing, right? That's always the big thing. Who's gonna be in the box? Who are the guests gonna be? Because it's always to pull at the heartstrings, to tell these.
You get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car. It was so grotesque, and I just, my husband didn't watch, and I went. He was like, "How was it?" I went in the other room, and I told him. He's like, I turned over for a second, and they were holding up some small child in the air, and it was like, well, wait till you hear the story about this. Then the West Point. So we were all in a group chat.
Yeah,
the four of us, and we're talking, and then they start talking about the kid from that wants to go to West Point. He's always dreamt of going to West Point. And Julie goes, "If they give him an injection right now, I'm going to die."
And then we're like, "They did."
And I was like 15 seconds behind because I watch on Hulu Live, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, I was like,
"That's exactly what happened." And of course, I don't know, Joe, if you're in the same boat. I, of course, being a crazy New York City mom, I'm like, how do I get my kid up there so that when he says he wants to go to Harvard, somebody's like, and guess what?
Like, right. Like, my kid's trying to get into Dalton. Like, how do I make this?
No.
But what makes that so infuriating is that it is getting into one of the naval academies is one of the most competitive. Applications. Like, it's like, I think even more competitive than Harvard at this point. 100%. You have to be nominated, and you have to list, like, I mean, it is the cream of the crop.
And it's free.
Right. That's
Yeah,
right. If you go,
you need an elected official, right? I think you need.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And so,
Yeah.
like, just to not saying that kid wasn't deserving, maybe he was, but it's kind of like those appointments are not for Donald Trump to just hand out as political bribes, because that's basically what they
And
are.
the fact he was a white guy was no mistake.
Oh, I mean,
Right.
why are we
Especially right now.
shocked about
Yeah.
that? Give me a
Did
break. Did you see the Joint Chiefs? I
Yeah.
mean, you know,
That was
like,
alarming.
Yeah.
I don't, and the kid
It's-
with cancer thing, you know, I was very upset about all of that because, again, I was with Julie. Like, if they're going to be in there, they can't clap, don't acknowledge any of it. But that puts you in an untenable situation. You don't clap for the kid with cancer, so
Right.
now you
I
look like the
know.
asshole.
No,
That's
you
all
don't
they're talking
clap
about
for-
now.
You don't
I
clap
know.
for him
That's
being
it.
exploited. You don't clap for him being exploited.
I agree,
Right.
but it's like,
They
but
want
it's
to call that kid afterwards and whatever he need. You know, they want to make him an honorary Capitol Police officer because I don't know why anybody would want to be under these circumstances, but you know they can do that. But you don't.
But it's after the fact, Julie. They're already now having to defend themselves for not
They
clapping for the
shouldn't. They
cancer.
should.
And what's amazing is that they're dragging the Democrats for turning that into a political opportunity when what they're doing right now is using that child as a political opportunity.
I know.
They're using him to drag the Democrats because they said the Democrats used him to score political points, and the whole thing just keeps feeding the Republican narrative. Now
That's why they shouldn't have gone.
Right. We're the ones back on our heels having to defend the narrative that they're imposing upon us like every
I know.
other effing time.
I
This is
know.
what they do. They say that they establish the false narrative that this is what we did, and then we chase the freaking shiny object and go, but that's not what we did. That's not what we did.
Well, why would we even defend that? Because honestly, like that's a kind of like when did you stop beating your wife question. Like why
Of
would
course it is.
why would you defend it? Let him say it.
Yeah.
You talk about how corrupt Donald Trump is and use
That's
that
right.
as example of corruption.
You and I know how to handle this, Julie, but the elected officials don't.
So
But the first thing I would have said was,
Uh-huh.
God bless. But by the way, X amount of doctors were just fired from NIH. Are the people who actually are working on childhood cancer trials that could possibly extend that child's life? Donald Trump fired that. Donald Trump and Elon Musk fired them. And you go down the fucking list.
Thank you. And I just did that on that other person's show on the other side of the pond. I just did that. And you know what? They didn't want to talk about it.
Of course
They
they
didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to answer my question because what they wanted to talk about was gaslighting us into believing that we're so cruel and we hate kids so much that we couldn't clap for this child. Meanwhile, they're the ones who don't do anything about school shootings. They're the ones rolling back child labor laws. They're the ones defunding public schools. And they're the ones who have literally defunded pediatric cancer research right now. Right now. So then they turn around and say, oh, Democrats don't like kids. Really? You're letting kids starve in school instead of giving them federally allocated money. You think we don't want to support kids? No, you're pro-fetus. You are not pro-kid. Don't sell me that bullshit. But the Democrats just don't understand how to go on the offense and make them chase the narrative that we impose upon them, which is actually factual.
So I have a programming note to all of this, which is that I'm doing a Substack Live on Monday. If anybody wants to join, or if anybody wants to send me questions with Congressman Frank Pallone, who is the ranking member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, who actually is doing a good job communicating on social media about this stuff. He actually gets it.
There's a handful of them that do.
Yeah,
unfortunately, it's not the majority.
Just to let people know why he's a critical person to talk to, it is his committee that oversees Medicaid. It is his committee that oversees healthcare for the most part. And so he was the chair, when the Democrats were in charge, he was the chairman of the committee. He will be again if Democrats get control back. He's the ranking member now. Nobody knows more about what they're trying to do, to Joe's point, deprive kids of CHIP, which is the program that funds health insurance.
I'm not laughing at that, Julie. I'm laughing at the fact that last night we were talking about CHIP and chips, and how Trump tried to just like take things and turn them around, like Biden's actual accomplishments that are good, and tried to turn them around as if they were bad. And chips was one of them. And I was saying to Michelle that it took me a while to not think of CHIP that you're talking about, child health insurance, or the Short Shorts 80s show with Eric Estrada on the bikes in California.
Excellent show.
So we had a
Love
whole
that show.
conversation about that.
Led us down a rabbit hole talking about cop rock, which is a whole nother situation.
Oh my
But
God. Wait,
really-
you guys had a discussion about cop rock and I wasn't
You
in on
know
it?
it? You knew
Yeah.
about this show?
Hello,
I didn't know about
I
this
got
show.
around in the late
Oh, yeah.
80s, early 90s. Of course I was around for cop rock.
I
What
didn't
was the
know
one with the
about
ginger and we
Yeah.
saw his butt? What was that one? What was that one?
Oh, that was NYPD, not NYPD.
No,
but
NYPD Blue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
NYPD Blue.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
Cop Rock was a whole. Cop Rock was kind
Oh,
of
yeah,
like a top of NYPD Blue.
It's
but
so camp. It was
was
so
glad I missed it.
bad.
Wait,
I
really?
was telling Tara that I had a roommate. I lived with this couple when I was young and in Hell's Kitchen, and they were like Broadway people and stuff. And he was on Cop Rock. Like, and that's how I like really, really know about it. And so anyways,
Dylan Max in the comments knew about it. He said folks are talking about this. I feel, I mean, Julie and I are roughly the same age. I didn't know anything about this Cop Rock.
still.
where were you? I don't know. You obviously had better things to do.
It was a
I
weird
guess.
time. It was a
I
weird time, though. That was a weird time. Let's be real. That was
Well,
a
yeah,
weird-
because we're dealing with Hill Street Blues. I mean, there was like so much like kind of like highbrow TV that was happening at the time because like Bruce Paltrow was running. Anyways, I took a whole class about this, so I could talk about this for days and days and days. But I find Cop Rock to be hilarious. And
Tracy at home said there's a reason Cop Rock was canceled after 11 episodes.
Wait,
That's
I have a
right.
question. I have a question for Michelle.
Yeah.
You took a whole class on Cop Rock?
No, not on Cop Rock. So if you know, there's a guy named Bob Thompson. He's a professor at Syracuse University. He teaches at Newhouse. He's kind of like a pop culture media expert. He's on TV a lot. Anyways, I took his class called Television of the 80s and 90s. And for a whole semester, but on Monday nights, I missed a lot of basketball games because of it. But it was a fascinating class, and we spent like 3 weeks on Twin Peaks. It was awesome.
Oh my
I love that class. I still
is
have
like-
the textbook. It's like on my
have it?
was that?
I would have aced that class.
Oh yeah, I took a pass fail.
I could have taught that class.
Yeah, I took a
never-
pass fail because I was a senior and I was a musical theater major, and I had to like petition to get into the class because
Oh,
it
wow.
was new. Because there's different colleges, and I was in visual performing arts, and I wanted the broadcast communication school was Newhouse. That's Bob Costas, all those people go. So I had to petition to get into it. So I wanted to take that class so badly, and I took a pass fail. But anyways, Cop Rock, Hill Street Blues, Twin Peaks, so much good stuff.
Northern Exposure would be on my list of like
That we did watch some episodes of Northern Exposure. We did.
LA
we did.
Law?
That I never watched that.
and I didn't
Yeah.
see Twin Peaks, which is crazy to me.
I didn't either.
You should.
I
I know.
tried watching Twin Peaks. I could never get into it.
Yeah, you
It
got to
just-
you got to give it a second. You got to give it a
Lost and Twin Peaks are two that I can't
Girl,
I didn't watch that either.
I didn't watch
Lost?
this either.
Can I? So not to go on a tangent here because I know we were talking about important stuff, but and also I'm really sorry if you hear. There's a reason I'm doing the show for my hallway. They did not tell us this was happening. There's 3 guys hanging around the side of our building, drilling into the wall around my apartment. The whole place is
Somebody
shaking.
thinks
So
those are my farts, Michelle. Someone thinks
oh
those are my
no,
farts.
I'm so sorry.
Oh,
no,
that's
to-
hilarious.
Is
Actually,
it a troll?
I'm half Lebanese.
Yes.
My farts, you'd know. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it a troll or like a real person?
Oh no, it's a
It's a
troll.
troll.
There's a couple
Okay,
of them
no.
today
It's
that are.
it's literally 3 guys hanging several stories above the New York City streets, drilling into the side of my building. So I apologize.
I'm
I've been
sorry
trying to
that
stay on
happened.
mute as much as I can. But anyways, Lost. So I used to be such a diehard Lost fan. I used to go to there was a bar in the East Village, and you would go and everyone would sit around in this like room. There'd be like 50 people, and like we'd be drinking and watching Lost, and it was like so fun, and it was a huge part of my youth in New York City is doing this. And I remember watching the finale there. It was so fun, and it was the worst finale in the history of television. So
I'm going to
Game of
date
Thrones, maybe.
myself and remind people that I was a Republican for a very long time. In the early 90s, I went to college in 1993. So from like 93 to 95, 94, I used to go to a steakhouse on M Street down the street from GW called Blackie's, which had been around for a long time. And that was a Rush room. Julie, you remember what a Rush room was?
No.
Rush Limbaugh
Oh, Rush Limbaugh. See, I was a Democrat. I don't know
Rush?
that you're weirdo. Like,
No, I know. But Rush was a big, he was horrible. But
yeah.
I was very into Rush when I was younger. I listened to Rush Limbaugh every day. We didn't have cable like that back then in our dorms. And Rush had a show that was on at night. And he had people like different places across the country called Rush Rooms where you could go and watch the Rush Limbaugh show. And like smoke cigars and, watch the show. And I used to go there and watch Rush Limbaugh.
I'll bet there's some stories those walls could tell.
That's wild.
Oh
I can't
my
imagine like doing that for fun, but go you.
When you're the vice president of the College Republicans at GW, which had one of the largest chapters in the country, that's the kind of Republican shit we did.
I like a very different kind of Rush room. Like, give me the Rush band.
The band, right?
Yeah.
Aren't they Canadian?
We're
Canadian?
rushing sororities, and that was a whole thing too. That was
Right.
another word. I did not do that. I was very against Greek life, but God bless all those.
You guys, I have a question because you know the story. Since we're on this topic of 80s TV shows and we're going down this rabbit hole, should I tell the Tony Danza story?
Yeah, you might as well.
This is your moment.
I don't
Alright.
know the story.
All right, guys, I'm going to admit to something here.
We need this level of catharsis, Julie, because last night sucked and
right.
we're upset with the Democrats. So we're gonna take a point of personal privilege here and do something fun.
I think this is my first go at this story, so I'm
you
done.
don't know the story? Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
If our producer can maybe find that New York Post article while we're here, you could throw it up later, but not yet if you can find it. So back in the 80s, I used to really be into Who's the Boss because I'm that age, and Alyssa Milano was like every girl anybody wanted to be. And of course, I wanted to be Samantha Maselli, who is the Who's the Boss daughter. And I was really into Who's the Boss.
It's a good show. Those
It's
are
great.
Great show. And by the way, if anybody here ever watched the show Community, there's an episode there where they do a whole class on who's the boss and they try to figure out who the boss is. And it's an excellent episode. Anyway.
Shout out to my girl, Yvette Nicole Brown.
Yes. By the way, one of the best shows ever, Community. Fantastic show.
Wasn't, what's his name on that show too? Chris Platt?
Who? No.
Chris Pratt?
Chris Pratt was on Parks and Recreation.
Okay, I always mix them up.
Guy was.
No.
Okay.
Chevy Chase, and Childish Gambino, like all those guys. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Joel McHale. Great show. So I was really into Who's the Boss. I happen to live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and Tony Danza lives somewhere around here. And about a year ago, I can't believe I'm telling the story in public, but a year ago, I walk out of my building and I'm with my dog, and my dog is a little rambunctious, but in this case, he actually wasn't doing anything wrong. For once in his life, he was not doing anything wrong. We walk out, and no sooner do we walk out the door than Tony Danza all but trips over my dog and starts screaming at me, "Get your fucking dog out of my way." Like crazy screaming. Whereupon I'm not a particularly emotional person. I don't go crazy in public. I don't know what the hell happened. If my parents are watching, I'm so sorry I raised a daughter like this, but I go crazy.
Sorry, Julie's dad.
Sorry, Julie's dad. I go crazy. And I start chasing Tony Danza down the street saying, "Fuck you, Tony Danza. Go fuck yourself, Tony Danza. Go fuck yourself, Tony Danza."
Who's the boss? I'm the boss.
It gets worse. It ends up in the New York Post.
Somebody must have heard.
Well, somebody might have wanted to make Tony Danza's life miserable and might have leaked it to the New York Post. But it gets in the New York Post. My name was not in it, luckily. And literally, there's a whole story about how Tony Danza is abusing this dog.
Oh my God.
Joe Simon in the comments is very upset by this story because he thinks Tony Danza's the nicest guy. He's like, he must have had a bad day.
You know what?
And he was like, no, it can't be true.
Dead to me because my cute little Hagrid Roginski is the best dog ever and did not deserve Tony Danza going crazy on him. And if Tony Danza ever gets wind of this show, Tony Danza, really, I think you owe my dog an apology. Not me, but you owe my dog an apology. I probably chased you down the street telling you to go fuck yourself. That is not the kind of language I typically use. But in this case, you deserved it. And so anyway, this thing becomes like a big thing for a few days where like Tony Danza's PR people that have to like assure New York Post how he's totally like into dogs. And then suddenly these little items in page 6 pop up about how Tony Danza's doing like charity work. So clearly his PR people go to work rehabbing Tony Danza's image, and literally people send me this not knowing that it was me. They're like, wow, did you see this about like, don't you live somewhere around Tony Danza? Did you see this? I was like, oh yeah, that was me. That was
fun.
You know, the thing that's so funny about this. So Julie and I both live on the same side of town, a little far apart from, but same side. And so anytime I'm down in that area, I think I've seen Tony Danza more times than any other celebrity on the West Side, because he is always by himself. And he's always like, do, hey. And that, like, every time I see him, he's singing to himself, talking to himself. I've also seen him sitting alone at that bar, Felice.
He's a Felice. He sings outside Manny's, which is, if you're ever in New York, there's a bar. There's a restaurant on, like, I want to say 70th and Columbus, somewhere around there.
I know. And I've seen him there. I've seen him there.
He literally does like, he's like busks outside of Manny. And so it's all very nice. He's got a very nice voice, but Tony Danza, and it's heartbreaking because I'm like, Tony Danza, I devoted my childhood to you.
Disappointing.
You were
never meet your heroes. Never meet your heroes. Especially outside with your dog.
My dog Lucy jumped on Kira Sedgwick. We used to live on the Upper East Side in the 80s near East End. And we had a little bodega right there on the corner, and that Kira and Kevin Bacon went to frequently. And my rescue, Lucy, mine and my ex's, jumped on her, and she was just an absolute delight. She was like, "Oh, that's okay." And we're like, "Oh my god!" Like, I don't know. I was like, "She's not a celebrity. What do we do?" Like, she's
that's Kevin Bacon's wife, right?
They're so normal. They're so. I used to see Kevin Bacon at the Reservoir walking their dog all the time too. And, like,
I've heard good things.
They're like the most normal, like nice.
Yeah, I've seen them in restaurants around town. They're actually super normal and nice.
And Lucy jumped on her, and she was just like, "It's okay," and like pet her and everything. So Tony Danza, I don't know what's happening there, but
I don't know. And then Tony Danza like told the New York Post something like, "Well, I felt fear because this big black dog was coming to get me." Okay, I do not have a big black dog. I have like a medium-sized dog. And nobody was coming to get him. Tony Danza, you're Tony Danza. You used to be like a box. Maybe it was just a boxer in the show. I don't know if in real life he's a boxer.
I think that he had to try to defend himself somehow for being an ass to your dog. But I think this is a good segue into what I'm over this week, because Donald Trump hates dogs. And you know, anyone who hates dogs, there's clearly something wrong with you. And speaking of something wrong with him, how terrible does he look? He was like gripping the podium like he was gonna fall over. Once again, he was the darkest person in that vicinity, because from the Joint Chiefs, to the other leadership in his cabinet, there are no people of color. So there you go.
DUI hire.
That's right. It's the DUI hire. Yeah, he was awful. But I'm over the fact that this fucking guy is trying to sell out America like we're some kind of product on QVC. He offered these gold cards first for citizenship. He said, "Oh, we have these beautiful gold cards. We're going to start selling them soon. These visas to people." And he said this about a week and a half ago, and it keeps coming up. And I think this is wonderful, to wealthy foreigners. And someone's like, "Well, what about like Russian oligarchs?" And you're like, "Okay with that?" He's like, "Well, I know some of them. They're pretty good guys." Okay, what are we doing? He's like, "Well, if we sell 8 million of these, we'll raise a couple $1 trillion and balance the budget." Like, this is another bribe, selling out our country. This is so obnoxious and corrupt. I don't even know where to start. And I know that someone got the bright idea, because we have a couple of visa programs where if you do certain amount of investment in the US, you can fast track citizenship or a green card or whatever.
It already exists.
Right. There's one. A lot of Chinese companies have abused this visa program. I forgot what it's called right now. But it's like if you invest $500,000 or something at minimum, and then you can fast track certain things. So, I mean, there's some problems with that. That's not even 5 million, but nobody was saying like, "Oh, we're going to, we're going to start selling them." Like, the government, what? These aren't stamps. This isn't a coin from the US Mint. Like, what are you doing? And then on top of that, not only the gold card scam, they're going to start selling off our national parks and federal lands for this sovereign wealth fund bullshit. which is just another cauldron of corruption that Donald Trump is contemplating here. Cuts to national parks and forests. Park Group warns of dismantling the National Park Service. They're looking to do all of this. And a lot of these people are federal workers. They're part of this whole Elon Musk's Doge cuts, where our federal parks are under assault too. So I am tired. I'm over Donald Trump selling out our country for his own personal gains. And he's going to start now literally selling off pieces of America to the highest bidder. That is just god awful. And two other quick things. Federal agency buildings they're talking about, they're going to sell off in DC. Let's not forget that Donald Trump wanted the FBI building because they wanted to build a hotel there, and then they didn't, so they bought the old post office building that's now the Waldorf. But they stopped a deal for the FBI building to be redeveloped because he didn't want any competition in downtown DC. Like it's all about Donald Trump and his pockets. It's absurd and obnoxious. And speaking of the U.S. Mint, just an aside, because I just remembered this. I don't know if you guys know, but there was a special coin that was minted for the January 6th officers to help raise money for them and to commemorate their service during the Biden administration. That has now been discontinued. They took down the ability to buy the January 6th coin that honors the officers. It is now wiped away from the U.S. Mint, and they never hung the plaque honoring them in the U.S. Capitol, which was passed by Congress. It is an act of signed into law, and because Mike Johnson is an asshole, they refuse to put it up.
Oh, so much, Tara. So much. Amen, amen, amen. I just like the national parks thing is not a partisan issue. This is not a partisan issue, folks. Like
EB5s. Thank you, Curry Favor. That's the visa program that the Chinese are abusing and terribly, but meant well, but not executed well. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
No, I mean, selling off our parks, selling off citizenship, like this, all this these transactional interactions, but everything is disposable to Donald Trump. And that literally includes our land itself. Use everything up as much as possible. Don't preserve anything. Who needs it? He's not going to be here around long enough to care. Who cares about somebody else's kids? Who cares about our future? You know, there's a planet B out there for those oligarchs who are probably planning on colonizing fucking Mars as we speak.
They talked about that at the speech last night. He said, let's go to Mars.
That's right. Exactly. I mean, it's so antithetical to, yeah, of course, right? Like we can't even get eggs under fucking $9 right here, folks, and we're gonna start colonizing goddamn Greenland. Give me a fucking break. All of that is another like money grab because he just wants their rare earth minerals and all the other shit that they can rob from those other places and from their land. And it is absolute madness. But it gets lost in all the noise. It gets lost in all the noise. But I guarantee you that some Republican who's like, hey kids, you want to go to Acadia next summer, doesn't understand that Acadia might be like purchased by China and marketed by blankety blank. This is the Exxon
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right?
This is not
look at that. Started there. And the people that have sovereign wealth funds are not exactly bastions of freedom.
Right.
And how about this? And how about this for messaging, Tara, to your point about them selling off federal property? The biggest building that they're talking about selling off is the Department of Justice.
Mm-hmm.
How is that for a gift to the Democrats? A messaging here. I tied it up in a little bow, Democrats. I just handed it to you. The Department of Justice.
Yeah.
They are selling the Department of Justice.
I mean,
what are you doing with that?
Well, while we're on that, and so I can get a word in while the drilling's going on, I have a clip here of Donald Trump last night on a hot mic talking to the Supreme Court justices. I think we should play that.
Thank you. Won't forget.
So good. Yeah, so good, sir.
Thank you.
Let's play it again.
Thank you again. Thank you again. Won't forget.
So good. Yeah, so good, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Is that what he said?
He said he's shaking their hand and he goes to the
They look like John Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
He says, thank you. I won't forget it.
Jesus, does that sound like something you're going to repay?
I mean, they're not even trying to hide it anymore. I mean, at all. he's just out in the open, just saying, like, I mean, that's the other thing about it. It's so brazen. It's so brazen. And I'm gonna
Well, at least they made the right call on the funding decision today, which was, thank
Oh,
God.
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
if it's
yeah.
enforced,
Yes, that's the next step. But at least they made that was the right decision.
What happened? I'm sorry, I don't want to relitigate.
Oh, that's okay. Like we were waiting on the freeze, right? That Trump was basically impounding this money, the foreign aid money, and the Supreme Court said no, he can't do that.
Yeah.
And so we're like, thank God, because if he was like, well, if the Supreme Court was like, well, it's a prerogative of the executive branch, blah, 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 we would have had a constitutional crisis on our hands, because it basically would have negated the Article 1 powers of Congress to authorize and appropriate money. So, that's why the founders separated those functions, so that the president couldn't do that, because that's what kings and monarchs do. And we just fought a bloody fucking war against that back then. So, some folks were holding their breaths, because they're like, this is going to be a harbinger of what to expect in the future with all of this executive overreach from Trump. So, well,
how did the bill come down?
4 justices voted against it. I mean, what does that tell you? 4 justices did not do that.
I was 5-4, which is
who was it? Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh,
Thomas.
Okay, so the Amy Coney Barrett went and Roberts went with the Dems. Okay.
Yeah.
Amy Coney Barrett is, a terrible, scary person. I've been noticing that she's been doing the right thing more than the others, which is kind of surprising. I mean, the bar is low, but it is noticeable that she has, voted along with the liberals on a few occasions when it has surprised me. So,
And her notes on the immunity case were very telling as well. Even though I believe she voted with the majority, her notes were interesting, because she was basically saying, well, I guess it doesn't really matter, but I'm not so sure about this.
I mean, if you're not so sure about it, you should have probably not voted. You shouldn't have voted in favor of it.
Here's what they did by voting that way, by the way, they have neutered themselves, because any law that they decide that they're going to uphold that Donald Trump does not like, he can ignore. And again, to paraphrase Joseph Stalin at Yalta, I keep using this analogy all the time, when Winston Churchill went to him and said, maybe you shouldn't screw around with Poland, because it was Potsdam, rather, not Yalta, Potsdam, right after World War II was over. Maybe you shouldn't screw around with Poland. There's a lot of Catholics there, and the Pope might not be happy about it, so don't try to invade Poland. And again, Stalin said, how many divisions does the Pope have? In other words, what's he going to do to stop me? And that is basically Donald Trump's response to John Roberts. How many divisions do you have, Mr. Chief Justice? And the answer is 0.
Yep.
0. Because the Sergeant at Arms of the Supreme Court is not going to go and arrest Donald Trump.
Nope.
No.
They'll arrest the Supreme Court justice. They'll arrest the Supreme Court justice before they'll.
100%. So I don't know why.
Cash Ellen, Cash
oh,
Hamilton.
yeah. So congratulations, John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett for doing the right thing on this decision today. But the reality is that it doesn't really matter if Trump wants to ignore it.
Yeah, that immunity decision was absolutely devastating. That's what's allowed Trump to get away with everything he's doing right now.
That's why he thanked him.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. But didn't that sound awfully transactional? Speaking about transactional, to me, I'll never forget. It feels like when you're ready to call in that favor, whatever the fuck that favor is. Maybe it's one of the Broligarch mansions on Mars, right? Whatever the fuck it is.
He's got a ticket.
And remember that thing with him and Kennedy? Because Kennedy was there
last time. The same thing.
Remember that fucking conversation and how weird that was? And then Kennedy stops cold and looks at him again. And we're all like, what the fuck was that? And he showed up last night.
Why was he there? Why was Kennedy there in his robe? I don't recall. Maybe I'm wrong.
It was so weird.
Former justice show up to this?
I missed that. No, I've never heard that before. I mean, I've been watching State of the Unions, even fake ones, joint sessions of Congress for 30 years. And I have no recollection of that happening in recent historical times. Why? Like, why?
Because
First
Rachel
of all,
Maddow
the
said they thought that Breyer was going to be the one retired SCOTUS. So I don't know if one just shows up randomly.
They
I don't-
always have a retired
I
SCOTUS.
don't know. She
there?
mentioned she said I was
Yeah.
expecting Breyer to be the retired SCOTUS or Supreme Court justice who came. So then, and she's like, but I guess it's Kennedy instead. So I was like, is that a thing?
It's a
I
thing.
didn't know it was a thing.
I've
I don't
never
know.
seen
Does
it.
anyone
Me
know in the
either.
chat? I don't know. Maybe it's
Yeah,
not.
does anybody know? Let us know in the
No,
chat.
I don't know, but usually they have like one doesn't go in case like there's a major terrorist attack and everybody gets blown up.
Like the designated survivor.
Designated
Yeah,
survivor.
well, that's
right?
even different. The designated survivor is one of the cabinet members, but
Yeah, who
they.
was that last night? by the
I
way?
don't even like
It was
matters?
Veterans
Who was it?
Affairs. Veterans
Doug
Affairs.
Collins?
Oh, that guy, the
Okay,
auction,
yeah.
the guy that Southern guy. like,
Yeah.
Doug Collins from.
I think
Yeah,
so.
Doug
That's what I heard.
Collins.
Yeah.
That's
Oh my
it.
God. Well, I mean, listen, there's the Supreme Court usually like, well, in the past when they were honorable, oftentimes said that they felt very uncomfortable. They don't like going to the joint sessions because they're not supposed to be political. They have to sit there stone cold, stone faced the whole time, and they don't like it. They would rather be anywhere else but there. But I don't know. Brett Kavanaugh looked to seem like he was having an awfully damn good time.
And did you see that one guy from the Joint Chiefs who nodded and like smiled at
Was
one
that the
point?
Raging Cajun or whatever the fuck his name is?
They're not
Raising
supposed to
Cane,
do that,
Raising
right?
Cane. Yeah.
the new
They're
Joint
not supposed
Chiefs.
to be doing that either. They're
No,
supposed
they're
to
not.
also be
No,
apolitical.
no, they're not. But these guys are political. These are those guys that photograph made my stomach turn because we all know that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth removed the Joint Chiefs, the staff, and the whole the folks in the Joint Chiefs that were not white dudes. They all got fired, including a 4-star general woman. Okay, there are no 4-star general women now in any military leadership. And there are no people of color on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And it was just disgusting to see all of that right there. Right there. It's right in
Especially
their faces.
to your point about Donald Trump literally looking like a melted circus peanut that's is on like coming home in a walk of shame after sitting in a hot car in Arizona at the peak of the day for the entire. This is what he fucking looked like. He looked like
Melted circus peanut, by the way, is my new favorite thing. Please say it every time I see you. Thank you.
like an upside down Oompa Loompa day drunk who's been sitting at the Applebee's in the strip mall talking to the wait staff about his conspiracy theories and his niece who he manhandled at Thanksgiving. I mean, this fucking lunatic. The world is laughing at us. Remember when we used to make fun of Boris Johnson? Boris Johnson looks like a Playboy fucking model compared to that. I mean, what in the name of Willy Wonka the fuck is that?
And by the way, Melania too. Is she borrowing his like orange?
I
stuff?
know.
What was up with her yesterday? She also looked very orange.
Her microbladed eyebrows. It's like, girlfriend, what?
Oh, and just as before we close, Melania Trump working on revenge porn as her signature issue, deep fakes and revenge porn. Has she met her husband?
My God.
I can't.
It almost feels like a reflex to to what the Russians were doing right after the election. I mean, remember Russian state media blasted the naked pictures of her. And like I remember the woman who's the host there was like they were giggling about it, and it was all like, listen, it's not like the Russians love Donald Trump.
Margarita Simeon is her name.
Yeah. It's not like the Russians love Donald Trump. He's a useful idiot. He is a useful idiot. And so, he won. And so they're like, we own you and I'm going to humiliate you now. And I'm going to show naked pictures of your wife on big screens behind me. And we're all going to laugh at you. And,
should we,
we're all gonna laugh at you.
do we have useful idiot? We put, thanks to Julie helping us out, we put out a Seneca video that went after Trump after that god awful display, that fiasco and humiliation in the Oval Office on Friday with President Zelensky. And we were also infuriated about that, as was much of the world. And so we decided to put a Seneca video out about it. And we asked Julie to help us with a Russian expression because we were like, what are we going to call it? And we called it Useful Idiots.
And
do we
I
have
just
it?
need to say, I just loaded it in.
Okay,
right
good.
now.
We should show it while we're here.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Speaking of idiots, that guy, Marjorie Taylor, 3 Toes, whatever the fuck her boyfriend's name is, her
Brian Glenn.
he was on before me on that show, and Piers was actually giving him some shit about what he said, and he's like, "Look, when you show up in the Oval Office, it's like showing up at church. You should be dressed for the occasion." And then Piers is like, "Well, what about Elon Musk? He's up in a t-shirt," and he's like, "Well, I wouldn't do it, but he's also, I mean, he's cutting billions of dollars in
I
wasteful
can't.
spending."
By the way, Joe, your impression of Piers Morgan, it sounds so much like Mick Jagger that it's hilarious. It's totally a Jagger impression.
That's totally intentional. That's intentional. I mean, I'm just really.
He wishes that were intentional.
Oh my
Have you guys,
God.
while this is processing, this is so loud, I'm so sorry. Have you ever seen John Mulaney's stand-up where he talks about Mick Jagger being the host on SNL, and he was like, it was horrible getting feedback from him. It could be like, not funny.
Yes, I didn't know the comedian's name, but I've seen the
John
not
Mulaney.
funny.
So funny.
Oh
Not
my God.
funny.
I was
That was
actually,
funny.
I was
So I
actually.
have it.
watching- go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it. I'll play.
Okay,
it.
okay.
Wait, hold on. Wait, did you press play yet?
No.
Julie, you should introduce it in Russian.
Mm.
So this ad is called in Russian. It's plural, right?
Yeah.
Useful idiots. Yes. Полезные дураки, which in Russian means useful idiots, which is what all of these people, from Donald Trump to Pete Hegseth to Kash Patel to Tulsi Gabbard, to all of them are, because all they do is repeat Russian propaganda. I watch Russian television, just you guys so you know, because I love like the way Tara used to watch Rush Limbaugh unironically. I actually love watching Russian television because I just love to watch what they say in Russian and then literally watching it regurgitated almost verbatim in English coming out of any member of this administration's mouth or Tucker Carlson or somebody. Verbatim, you guys. It's not even funny how much they repeat this stuff. Somebody obviously sends them the translation in English and they repeat it. So I will set up this ad because I had nothing to do with the creation of it other than to say it is an excellent, excellent ad. I love it.
You got to be more thankful.
Please tell me I'm not the only one that saw that.
I don't even have words for what I just saw.
You said thank you once.
Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt. He was accused of all that stuff. He had nothing to do with it.
Zelensky found every opportunity to try to Ukraine-splain.
I don't know if we can ever do business with Zelensky again.
Is the United States abandoning Ukraine?
No.
Hegseth has directed U.S. Cyber Command to pause all planning against Russia.
Alliances that my grandfathers spilled blood for, just cast aside as if they're nothing.
Flee in Moscow.
The Kremlin says the U.S. is aligned with Russia's vision.
Fallout from the Helsinki summit gloating in Putin's state-controlled media, taunting him for not sticking up for his own country.
I think that the United States has been foolish.
The American-European alliance is effectively over.
We could see the end of NATO.
We are not ready to give our freedom to this terrorist Putin.
This is not just about Ukraine. It's Putinization of America.
Then it makes it a lot easier to steal from the American people, just like Russia.
We're about to lose our country.
It's a 5-alarm fire.
What's the signal? SOS, ding-a-ling, hello.
We might not be loud enough.
The sacrifices you make now will rewrite history, but we have to be willing to make them. We have to be willing to stop buying things, to stop going to work, to walk off the job, to sit in protest, to be in the streets as long as it takes.
You guys, I love that ad.
Amazing. Chill.
Applaud. It's such a good ad. And by the way, I know we're running short on time here. What the hell is Ukraine splain, Marco Rubio? He's Ukrainian. Is he not supposed to tell you from the perspective of a Ukrainian what he wants? Like, is he supposed to Florida splain?
Somebody on his staff must have said that to him because, I mean, as we all know on the show, and hopefully most of the people watching, is that Marco Rubio has been one of the loudest supporters of Ukraine in opposition to Russia.
So was Lindsey Graham.
So was Lindsey Graham. And all of a sudden, now they're all up in it. And this just shows, I mean, who knows? We can guess all day, oh, do they have something on them? Blah, blah. I don't think it matters because all it shows at the end of the day is these people have no moral compass. They have no spine. And I am convinced that all of these people hate the United States of America, because I don't know how you do this with love for this country in your heart. These people hate this country and they hate the people who live here. Mm-hmm. Especially those who disagree with them. And so, you know, I think we have to start saying it plainly. They have declared war on the American people.
Yep.
They have declared war on the American people. And we are under attack. And we have to start acting like it.
And if Marco Rubio had sunk any deeper into that couch, JD Vance would have fucked him.
And on that note,
well, guys, I never did my over it.
Oh my God, Michelle.
I'm just here, guys.
We thought you were
little
over
old
the
me,
noise.
little old me down in the right-hand corner.
We thought you were over the noise,
Michelle.
That's our fault. Go for it, Michelle. Go for it.
Well, my over it today was going to be my TMJ, which I have suffered with for many, many years. I grind my teeth in the nighttime, and then when I get very stressed out, I clench, and then I am in pain, and I have like heating things and ice packs, and I have to wear a mouth guard. It's awful. But instead of that, I'm just going to say the city of New York, which is a surprising thing for me to say after 21 years of this being my home, because I love New York and I will defend it till the death. But today, New York can shove it up its tuchus, because between the sirens, I live near a hospital, between the sirens and the goddamn noise. I mean, when I tell you these people are hanging, what are those like things where they hang and they're like, they're outside every single one of my windows, nowhere else in the building, just my apartment. So my landlords don't give a shit. Nobody cares. I emailed my super. He's a nice guy, but I was like, I can't do this. What am I supposed to do? Just go rent a hotel? But I can't even rent a hotel for a day. That's only for night. And then there's no noise at night. So anyways, the city of New York today, listen, if I had to leave, I'd be screwed because I don't drive. God damn it. And it's just
right on cue.
As soon as we get off this, I put my big noise canceling headphones on and listen to George Michael. Like that's going to be the rest of my day. Because I even had we're supposed to do Dean Obadiah's show at like do a pre-tape at like 3:30, and I can't do it now unless
Why don't you come over, Michelle? Want to do it for my house? Come over.
Maybe. All right. Maybe I will.
Yeah. You got 2.5 hours. You got 2 hours and 20 minutes to figure it out.
Skip down the way.
And also, I had a Tony Danza while you're down there.
Let's go to police and get some spaghetti and wait for Tony Danza to show up. If you say his name 3 times, I'm told.
I'm sorry, but all I hear is Tiny Dancer. Every time you say Tony Danza, every time I'm in my just Tiny Dancer.
Every time. Guys.
Tony Danza. But
the 12-year-old Julie Roginski's heart broke that day. I just want you to know.
I know. Well, the other thing that I am also over is institutions telling the people participating in them that they're not allowed to be political. That was part of the message at the Oscars, that all the people, they were all told to keep their mouths shut and to keep things not political. Jesus Christ.
Really?
They were?
Yeah, they were. I mean, some of them spoke up, but in a year like this and the things that are going on, I was horrified that more people were not speaking up. And Hollywood has been, and theater has been kind of at the center of rebellion and resistance and speaking back from Vietnam to the Red Scare to, every moment in this country's history when there has been injustice, they have been able to speak out. And as happy as I am for the people who won, including Kieran Culkin, this I was very, 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 very upset to not hear more. And why don't they just act? Why do they, why do they have to become? Because we're all Americans. Back to the point of there is no such thing as real Americans and not real Americans. We're all Americans. We're all paying taxes and participating in our democracy here. And if given the platform, God willing, speak up, because not everybody has that platform. So
they don't have a problem with Tony Danza. They don't have a problem with Scott Baio, by the way, speaking up.
Right.
Yeah. Or like
the
guy
or
John.
That's right. They don't. And to end it on a happy note, I cried tears watching Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande perform Defying Gravity and the tribute to the Wizard of Oz franchise, including the song from The Wiz, which is also a tribute to Quincy Jones. The opening of the Oscars this year I think was one of the best openings in recent memory. Conan, I think, did a fantastic job, but that performance and the song Defying Gravity, I think, is one of the most powerful songs for the moment that we're in. And it was political without them actually making it political, and it touched a lot of people, including me, and I cried tears watching it.
And nobody in all of Oz, not a wizard that there is or was is ever going to hold me down.
Yep. Yep. So words to live by. The symbolism of that really speaks to the moment we're in. And Cynthia Erivo has an unearthly talented voice, and Ariana Grande that comes out of her little body. She's an amazing vocalist also, but Cynthia Erivo is on another level and just spectacular. So, all right, on that note, we will see you guys on Saturday for our coffee and conversation. Like and subscribe if you haven't. If you like Seneca Project, please go over to our channel and like and subscribe so you'll get more of our videos.
And we're gonna have some new stuff coming out today, so go on over and check it out.
Yes. And we are re-releasing American Girl for Women's History Month. So stay tuned for that. That is, Joe's been pushing us to do it for a while. This was the perfect time to do it. Saturday is International Women's Day. So we're going to do all the things and re-release American Girl and do a like a tutorial of the historical images in it.
Oh my God. The single greatest political ad I have ever seen in my entire life. Ever, hands down.
Thank you. That's honestly, I just have to say, Joe, like, you know, for what I've kind of been through in my career and you know, I sometimes second guess myself, and hearing that just makes me feel so good. So thank you so much.
You shouldn't, because on your deathbed, when you think about things that you've accomplished, that's going to be up there.
And no one could ever take that from you.
Nope.
Ever.
Thank you.
So. You made my daughter cry. You made my almost 12-year-old daughter cry. And she said, Mommy. And she called me Mommy. When she watched it was that powerful. It is that powerful. And so, yes.
Well, what gave us the idea was a woman emailed us about her daughter, your daughter's age, and said that she showed it to her and that she was so inspired by it. She wanted to do a research paper for her school on the historical images and write something about it. And so we were like, we've kind of kept that in the back of our minds, and we were like, how can we do this in a way? And then it all came together with this. But yeah, so
amazing.
Thank you guys on that. Well, happy Hump Day. We will see you all. And tomorrow night, if you want to come hang out with Michelle and I some more, we'll be on our show, The Stakes, at 7:30 on the Seneca Project YouTube channel. And we'll have Marcus Flowers, who ran against Marjorie Taylor Greene a couple years ago to try to unseat her there. Marcus is a former military guy, former Army guy, 20 years in the military and the Defense Department. And we're doing some work, coalition work, partnering with him, focusing on veterans and what this administration is doing to our veterans. So we will have him on with us to chat a little bit about that tomorrow night too. So
I am
there.
not to counter program against you guys. I didn't know that you were doing this at 7:30, but
oh yeah, every Thursday.
Whoops, then I'm counter programming against you guys. But in case you want, you don't have to watch it live, although
Us either.
But at 8 p.m., I'm doing a Substack Live with Charlotte Clymer, who I don't know if you guys know Charlotte.
Yeah, I know her. Yeah, she's a friend.
Charlotte is one of the best communicators in the Democratic Party. I don't know if she's actually, I don't even know if she's a Democrat, but one of the best communicators on our side of the aisle.
She's very good.
She's very, very good. And I have been a total fangirl of hers for years, and finally got together with her online and said, do you want to do this with me? She said yes. And so I'm super excited to talk to her about what Democrats can do to communicate better.
Tell her I said hi.
I will.
Yeah.
Well, they can watch us at 7:30 and then go over and watch you on at 8.
I don't want to step on you guys. Anyway, we'll figure it out.
I have something you guys can do at lunch, depending on where you live and what time you eat lunch, because I'm going to have Jim Acosta on my Substack Live tomorrow. Finally, I got Jim. I'm so excited. A friend of yours. Yeah, I think all of you guys know him at least. I was persistent, to say the very least, as I am known to be. So tomorrow, 1 p.m. on my Substack, the RAF and Kidding Me Substack, I'm going to be talking to Jim Acosta. And between us guys, don't tell anybody, but I think he's kind of cute.
Oh my gosh, Jim is the nicest guy ever, and he loves dogs, by the way. So I think
he has a hound mix just like I do. We both have hound rescues. Yeah,
I remember when he got
Danza.
Go watch his episode. Go watch his episode of Finding Your Roots, and you will love him even more.
Yeah, promise. He's amazing. I don't know if I know he's divorced, and I know he has a son, but I don't know if he's in a relationship.
Well, no. Luckily, no one is watching this, and no one will tell Jim Acosta that.
I don't know. There's 15,000 people watching.
15,000 people are watching us.
Since when? You guys should have told me.
The whole show. There's 15,000 people watching.
I'm so embarrassed.
Oh my God. Let's get out of here before we get ourselves in more trouble.
Let's go.
All right, guys.
Bye,
We'll see
everybody.
you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching.